Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 16th, 2023 meeting of the Ann Arbor Renters Commission. The purpose of the Renters Commission is to advise the City Council and the City Administrator in matters affecting renters in our city. Our commission is made up of voting members who are appointed by the mayor and approved by City Council, two non-voting City Council liaisons, two non-voting members representing different landlord perspectives, and a non-voting representative from the University of Michigan Student Legal Services. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, you'll be able to speak through the webinar link or by phone. For phone access, please call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 935-8080-1941. To be called on to speak, you need to press *9 if you're listening by phone or raise your hand if you're calling in through the web link. And the web link is a2gov.org/Renters Commission meeting. Each first letter is capitalized, a Renters Commission meeting. Then you'll be called upon by staff, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name at the beginning of your comments. So moving on to roll call, item 2. And we have to state the city, township, or state that we're calling from. So we'll go through. Commissioner Farrow, that's me. I'm here calling in from Ann Arbor. Commissioner Chen is not here. Commissioner Peterson has resigned, and I'm not sure if she's been officially removed, if her resignation has been accepted. We'll keep going though. Commissioner Kelly is not here. Commissioner Droppelman.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Welcome. Commissioner Else is not here. Commissioner Lowe's.
Present, Ann Arbor.
Welcome. Commissioner Tibbetts.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Great to have you. Welcome. Commissioner Rosen.
I'm here in Ann Arbor.
Nice to see you. Commissioner Ratcliffe.
Present here in Ann Arbor.
Welcome. Commissioner Thomas is not here. Commissioner Pitts.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Welcome. Commissioner Good.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Great to see you. And our council members, Redina and Councilmember Harrison, are not able to make it tonight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Yeah. Okay, we can move on to the approval.
I don't count, you know.
Yes, not as a voting member. Yeah, I'm just making a count. Yeah, thank you. We still have quorum. So we move on to item 3, approval of our agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. So is now open to either be approved or amended. Are there any motion? Let's see.
I'm sorry, I didn't read it super carefully, but in the like scheduling part, can we talk about attendance? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's see. That would be. I'm looking here. Are you talking about 7-B? The review meeting time.
Yeah.
Date and time. Sure.
I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
And then,
Go ahead, Kristen.
yeah, emailed about an HHSCV and eviction discussion, and I didn't get that out to you guys with the change. So if you want to add that discussion item, you can amend the agenda. Yeah, maybe Jeff, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah. Zachariah had asked if we, if in my capacity with the advisory board, if we could get some information regarding evictions, and also current programs that the county might have to help people prevent evictions, and also if there were any other programs that they were looking into implementing or anything like that. And so I had asked one of the members of the committee to come and talk to us today, and it was Amanda. I don't know if she confirmed though.
Did you get the link to her?
I did, yes.
Okay.
I don't see Amanda in the participants list. So we could kind of see if she attends and then kind of play it by ear. Or we could do kind of wait until the report from HHSAB item kind of at the end for this topic. I'm flexible.
Makes sense to me.
Oh.
Okay, great. So I don't think there's anything big enough to be an amendment here. So do we have a second? Let's see.
Second.
Oh yeah, thank you. I was supposed to take a second earlier. Thank you. Seconded by Julia for motioning to approve the agenda. All those in favor of approving the agenda as it stands, say yay.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Okay, with that, our agenda is approved. Thanks. We'll move on to item 4, approval of last meeting's minutes. So the last meeting was October 19th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Julia. Do we have a second for that?
I'll second.
Seconded by
Rosanita.
Rosanita. Yeah, thank you. Looking for you. Seconded by Rosanita. Thank you. All those in favor of approving last meeting's minutes, say yay.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Okay, approved unanimously. Okay, we can move on to item 5, which is the first general public comment. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. And Kristen, if you're ready, I'll let you lead that.
For phone access, you can call 877-853-5247 or 888-788-0099 and enter a meeting ID 935-8080-1941. Or if you are attending through the web link, you can go to a2gov.org/renters commission meeting. And if you're calling in, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And if you are joining with the web link, you can click the raise hand feature. Is there anyone who would like to address the Renters Commission for up to 3 minutes? You can raise your hand now. Jennifer, go ahead and address the Renters Commission.
Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I'm a student at the University of Michigan. I'm a senior this year, and I emailed Kristen about this yesterday. I believe that she forwarded it to you all, but I'm working on a school project just to help with equity and affordability of housing in Ann Arbor, and I was looking to see if anyone on the Renters Commission had any open initiatives or any ideas for new initiatives that I could help out with. I have a couple ideas if you'd like me to reiterate, but just looking to help out.
Oh, Kristen, I think you're muted.
I'm sorry. Thanks, Jennifer. I did share your email with the chair and vice chair. I'm not sure if they've had a chance to review it yet. But now that we have your contact information, I think we'll be able to get back in contact with you.
Okay, great. I'll look forward to that email then. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, we have another attendee. Jeff Hayner, you can address the Renters Commission for up to 3 minutes.
We can't hear you. You may be speaking, but I think you might be muted.
Is that this caller here?
Okay, we can hear you now.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. It didn't come through in my phone that I was the next caller. Hey, I'm just calling because I really pay attention to all these meetings. I watch them and they're always in my YouTube feed. And so you guys happened to pop up when I was waiting around for Thursday night football. And I just when the Renters Commission was formed a while back, I was on council then, and I really advocated for having someone who was a property owner be part of the commission, and it didn't work out that way, and it's unfortunate. And I also, I'm glad that we have this renters commission, and I hope that you guys, have a full agenda to get things done. I was also kind of disappointed to see that your council rep isn't here either. I know that, that you can't make everything all the time. I mean, I missed 2 things ever until I wasn't allowed to serve on any anymore. And, it's very difficult to, feel like you're doing the best you can when you don't show up even for your, board and commission meeting. So I'm sorry to see that, but I appreciate what you guys are doing. I hope in the future that you include people who own the properties. I think that's really the way to get things done is to have all the parties at the table. Thank you.
Thanks. Are there any other attendees who would like to address the Renters Commission for up to 3 minutes?
I don't have I just wanted to make sure it's known that we do have 2 landlord seats. And I think they've been very productive members. Very happy to have them on the commission. I would agree that their insight has been very valuable.
And there are no more hands raised, so we can close public comment.
Thank you, Kristen. And thank you to all the commenters. Jennifer, we will be in touch. I'll send an email out afterwards. And if any of the commissioners want to maybe take part in that conversation, just let me know, send an email. Okay, we can move on to item 6, which is old business. We have only one piece, which is 6-A. It's I believe it's a resolution really regarding municipal electric utility. Julia, since you wrote it, perhaps you could give us a quick reminder of what it's about and sort of present the ideas in there.
Sure, I think everyone's got a copy of it. It's linked in the agenda. This came out of when we were tabling at the Green Fair, just kind of talking about how hard it is to be a renter with all the electric outages that we've been suffering the past handful of years. So this is to request City Council to pursue a phase 2 study for municipalization of the power grid and all other means available to ease the burden renters face due to unreliable electricity. If anybody's having trouble seeing it, I mean, I can read the whole thing if you need me to. Oh, there we go.
Could have shared it earlier.
So I guess I'm officially moving this.
And do we have a second? I'm not sure if it's required, but
Second.
second by Jamie. Thank you. Are there any questions, discussion of this resolution?
I guess I'll just mention, because there were some questions, comments at the last meeting, Zachariah and Rosanita and I met, and we did make some changes to it.
Thank you, Julia. Bob?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I think this is extremely helpful, and I think it really identifies those 4 bullet points. Really do get to the heart of the issue that all of us, I think, or many of us, face, whether you own or rent. These are big problems, and I think it's extremely well put. So I appreciate it.
I agree.
Jeff?
I want to, I guess, underline, the third bullet point, as someone that has a medical condition, sleep apnea, that requires power in order to use the device to sleep, CPAP. That's absolutely true, and more than once, I have been fortunate enough to have a vehicle where I've been able to make other arrangements, but for anyone that doesn't, whether they have oxygen or a CPAP like I do, or some other medical need, if they rent, they have absolutely no other recourse than to try to find another location in which to stay. And of course, that's oftentimes not either financially or logistically viable. So thank you so much for including that in there as well.
Any other comments or discussion, questions? Jamie?
Yeah, I would just echo, I think this looks great. Personally, I think the first bullet point really emphasizes to me the impact that outages kind of disproportionately the burden that it puts on renters. Most renters I know are spending like a larger portion of their income on rent compared to like what a homeowner pays for a mortgage. So I think even like that disproportionality, when you lose power, lose food, it makes a big difference. So yeah, I think this looks really good.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, we'll move on to a vote. Okay. Well, so all those in favor of passing this resolution or adopting this resolution, say yay.
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 Yay. All those opposed? Oh, Kristen, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Who seconded? I missed that, and I didn't mean to interrupt though.
Oh, no worries. I think it was Jamie. Is that right?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All those opposed say nay. Okay. Well, thank you so much for bringing that, Julia, and thanks for working on it, Rosanita. With that resolution is adopted. And I suppose, will that be included in our report to City Council?
Yes, I have to take a look at the deadline for the next city council meeting, but if it doesn't go the first December meeting, I may be able to squeeze it in next week, but if not, it will be December.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, we can move on to next item on the agenda. That's 7, new business. We can start with 7-A. We have an update from Rental Housing Services. We had some questions for them, and I'd be happy to share this. Kristen, would you like to give some background on this, since you're the one who gathered the information from Rental Housing Services?
Sure. The Renters Commission was interested in seeing some stats about budgeting and inspections and information like that, kind of to see if my understanding is you kind of wanted to kind of crunch the numbers yourself and see what would make sense to advocate for, or maybe what a missing piece was. And instead of sending that over, rental housing staff suggested, why don't we just meet and kind of talk about it? And so these are the topics that we discussed. I was really interested and surprised to hear that they're planning to scale up their inspector staff, kind of almost doubling it over the next 2 years, both in response to all of the new units that'll come online during that time, but also that they recognize the volume of work. They said their inspectors are super busy, and that they have 6 slots every day and that they are always full. So kind of the highlights for me, they were also willing to pursue a at first temporary person to deal with ELO and right to renew complaints. As we discussed before, the inspectors aren't quite equipped to handle the nature of the complaints. So they're kind of looking at different options. Something I thought was interesting is that posting a site is one of the faster ways to get compliance, even more so than like a violation sometimes. So that was interesting to hear. Trying to see the other highlights. I think that about covers it. I know you had other questions that I submitted in an email after I met with rental housing. And I got them back today, but I'd like to, before I share with you, I'd like to clean it up a little bit. Jeff, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, sorry. When they said posting a site, what did they mean by posting a site exactly?
That's a good question. I'm going to pull it up on the rental housing website. My understanding is that it's a posting on the unit that says there is a violation here. It doesn't mean that the current tenants can't live there. It doesn't mean it's not habitable, but I think it means there's like I'm going to pull it up. So there's a section on their webpage that explains that.
It's almost like a grade from the health inspector in the window kind of thing.
I think it is along those lines of that, yes.
I think they generally post a notice of non-compliance on the property.
Yes. Notice of non-compliance. If the owner agent failed to meet the inspector 2 or more times, if the owner agent failed to make the correction cited in the inspection in the time frame, failed to register the property. And if it is posted, tenants can put their rent in escrow. According to this section on the rental housing page, it says tenants are not required to vacate the unit, but they may elect to put their rent money in escrow until the posting is removed by a City of Ann Arbor rental housing inspector. And so in the discussion with rental housing, that is a big motivator to landlords to be being paid rent. Jamie?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Kristen, are you aware is there any, or I guess maybe anybody else on the call, is there a penalty if a landlord takes the posting down, or?
I don't know, but I imagine there is because of the section that says until the posting is removed by a City of Ann Arbor rental housing inspector.
Yeah.
I'll do like I'll try to find it right now.
Okay.
Nina, what's your question?
Oh, did you call me?
Yes, sorry.
Sorry. I just wanted to say that I support having the additional staff. When you scroll down, the one for enforcing the ELO and right to renew, and to ask what we would have to do in order to show our support if everyone else was interested.
A great way would be for your city council members on the renters commission to be on board because they ultimately approve the budget. So that's kind of part of it. I think passing resolution like you do for other things is a way to do it. And then also maybe talking with council, maybe there's a way to do it, like a communication to council that explains why you support it, what rental housing's need is, and why you think additional staff would help a lot. It's definitely something to talk about when council members Regina and Harrison are here. Also, Attorney John Reiser is planning to be at the meeting a little bit later today. He had another meeting, but he might have the information about the removing the posting of noncompliance. Jeff.
Sorry, one more quick question. For an additional staff member, a temporary position that might be able to help with compliance for right to renew and ELO. If that's in the fiscal year 2025 budget, I don't recall. Is that calendar year or is that starting in June 2024, like it says in the note there?
I believe it would be for the next the June 2024, maybe it would be approved, but it would take a little while to get implemented after that.
Okay, so we really are looking at 2025 probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something that would motivate that to be faster is if there was a high volume of work to do with it. So that's kind of another thing, is being able to prove that the position is needed, and that can happen a few different ways, by people submitting complaints and things like that.
I have a question. Were you able to ask about the rights and duties of tenants and landlords booklets? I know that I don't think there is anything in here, but were you able to ask about it, and did you receive a response? I know you're trying to
I asked because I wasn't able to talk in like the hour that we had about all of the questions, but that wasn't my follow-up email. And I believe that they said there maybe has been one official like citation for not providing it, but to my knowledge, and also I think give me a second, I'm gonna look at the email and see what it says. I think that they find that after the warning there generally is compliance, so there's not always a need to issue the violation, and I think that's what the email says, but I'll check.
Okay. That makes sense. I just was wondering how if they were keeping track of the warnings, so that if they were repeat offenders, that they were able to issue fines.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. It might be something to request, like maybe a formal request to rental housing to keep track of those. I don't know exactly how they will do that. I will share that we had a landlord call the clerk's office sort of recently and say, what is this tenant booklet? I had my inspection and the inspector talked to me about it, and I had never heard of it. So how do I get it? And so that was kind of reassuring that it is on the radar of inspectors, but I'd be interested to know if it's on their checklist that they go to units with.
Yeah, that's right. We did ask about that. Yeah, because I'm glad that more of them are getting out, but I had spoken to a group of maybe 15 students or so, and I asked them about the booklet, and I was really shocked that not a single one knew what I was talking about. And maybe some of them had received it and they forgot about it or something like that, but I think most of them just hadn't received them. And I thought that I was not expecting that. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll share that McKinley reached out to the clerk's office and requested 2,200 booklets, and we don't have enough, so we're printing more. But that also was kind of reassuring that they reached out and requested some money. Jeff.
Piggybacking on what Zachariah said, I talked to a few students in the last week or so too, and it was kind of the same thing. I don't know about the students you spoke with, but the ones I did were all in smaller, I won't say publicly held, privately held, but folks that have maybe a few rental units, maybe they own a couple houses on a block, something like that. So I don't know what your experience was with your students that you spoke with, but I guess in a way that wouldn't surprise me as much as a larger group that would be more on top of that, like McKinley. But I wonder if what the distribution is, or is it mostly smaller groups, smaller landlords, or is it larger groups that are not providing those?
The information I have about folks who pick them up is that it's often larger. Like typically when people either call the clerk's office or come to the counter, it's for a larger volume. Pretty rarely somebody's asking for like 20 or 15. I think most of the time it's a lot. But maybe that's something interesting for the work plan to kind of evaluate large versus small landlords and booklet compliance. And after this meeting, and like I'll send out an email tomorrow with the rest of the information that rental housing sent over. The format is would be tricky just to send it, just to forward it. So I'll clean it up and send it out.
Hey Bob, I saw your hand was up. I don't know if Kristen saw.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to say that for us smaller landlords, we can just go in and pick up the booklets. I mean, there's usually a few sitting there, so it's not the case that you have to request them typically.
That's true. We do have them out along with some other forms, and then sometimes we also have them in the vestibule on the north side of City Hall. So somebody might not even come up to the clerk's office to get them.
Right.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kristen, for asking those questions. I think we all look forward to seeing the other responses from rental housing services. But just I'm very, very pleased to see all this information. It's really great to know. Any other questions or discussion about that item? Okay, we can move on to 7-B, which is reviewing our meeting date and time. So the Renters Commission must approve our meeting calendar at our December meeting. So we have CT. Let's see. Let me open up the schedule. Ideally, we'll pick a time when CTN is free so that they could broadcast it.
Yeah, that's something to weigh. There's not a ton of options. There we go. If CTN isn't able to, like, if you would like a time where CTN isn't available to broadcast it live, we're still able to record the meeting on Zoom and then post it on YouTube, and then it would also go into like CTN's rotation on the channels that CTN is on, so it would reappear periodically. It just wouldn't be live on TV for people, but or on YouTube for people. It would just be the meeting link. Okay, and so this calendar shows what all of their existing commitments are. And right now we're the third Thursday of each month. Other options, I think, could be the fourth Thursday. It'd have to be an earlier time slot. They need to be wrapped up with us by about 6:30 for the 7 o'clock meeting or earlier. So kind of you'd have to maybe do like a 4 o'clock start time, which may be difficult.
Yeah, Jeff.
I was just going to suggest that if CTN can still record these and broadcast them, we probably should worry more about what's the best time for us. And then if it fits into one of their slots, great. And if not, if they're going to record it and still broadcast it, so it's still publicly available, I think that's still okay.
It would be broadcast just on the Zoom link, but then later it would be available. If somebody just wouldn't be able to watch on their TV while the meeting was happening, or YouTube. It would only be Zoom. Julia?
It gets a little hard to know why commissioners aren't here. But there are some who haven't made many meetings and technically are at the point where they can be removed. If it was a conflict, then I'd be willing to change. Otherwise, this time's kind of good for me. So I don't know if other people want to mention, like, if this time is good for them or they want to change. And then maybe we should talk a little bit about if there's something we can do to either figure out whether a commissioner's gone, like Lucy, we did hear from, but some of the others we haven't heard from.
This time generally works for me.
Me as well.
I like this time.
I'm okay either way.
What
If
a
there's
group
not,
of agreeable people.
I know. If there's not a lot of desire to change for the next meeting, I'll put together a calendar of the third Thursday. And then you would just vote to approve it, move it and second it and approve it. And then that's all you'll have to do, but it'll have to be next month. Well, I guess you could approve it today since you have quorum if you'd like to do that. Next month's meeting is December 21st, which is approaching the Christmas holiday. Some people maybe. I would hate to not have quorums, I guess, to approve the calendar. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. I think it might be good to email though first the people who are not able to come and say, well, everyone who was able to come thinks that this is a good time. But if anyone who wasn't able to come thinks it's not a good time, then maybe we could talk about it at the next meeting, just to be more inclusive.
Works for me.
Sounds very good.
Rosanita?
I did have a question because it's my first, year on the commission. I know that some commissions like Kodai, they take a few months off during the summer. Is there in our calendar, is there a time that we do take a month off at all, or do we run the full 12 months?
The past year and a half-ish of the Renters Commission, it's been the full 12 months. I know that some boards and commissions may combine their meeting. A lot of times the meeting will fall like at the end of December and the end of November, and they have a really tough time getting quorum. So maybe they just have one early December meeting. So that's something to consider if the group is interested in that. And it kind of depends on how scroll down on my calendar to see. The third Thursday next November, I believe, is Thanksgiving. So that meeting would have to be a different day. December looks like no conflict. So something to think about. Maybe we would do the week before Thanksgiving or the week after Thanksgiving, or if the group wanted to skip the month, that's fine too.
So we're waiting to vote on this at the next meeting?
I think so.
Okay.
If there's no more discussion, I think that can be it for the.
Well, then the only other discussion I have on this is there are empty slots. So I need some help here. The tenant attorney slot is open. Lucy Peterson resigned, so her slot is open. And then I don't know if other people know some of the other commissioners. Kristen, did you hear from any of them?
I didn't. I'll reach out again, and see. Just, yeah, I'll send another note. Patrick did let us know he missed tonight. And he typically does ahead of time. I can see what options are available for promoting the vacancies. I know it's sometimes difficult with the city's communications channels because there's a lot of boards and commissions and they can't post on social media every time one is empty. But I can see if there's anything available since the attorney position has been vacant for a while.
Just an update on that attorney position. I'm waiting to hear back from somebody, but if anyone has any leads, I'd be happy to reach out, or you could reach out. Just get people to fill out that application. So if you know, even if it's kind of a long shot, I think it'd be worth trying. Julia, is there something else you wanted to discuss about vacancies or absences? Okay.
No, it's just easier with a full commission.
I completely agree. I think Councilmember Radina had talked to me, sent me a message about getting more applicants. So try to get friends to apply. I mean, we had some great applicants from last time if they're still willing to join the commission. But we should get those filled probably in the next couple months. Reach out to the people in the commission who have not been attending without notifying us, especially, and just check in. And hopefully get that attorney seat filled too. But, okay. Anything else on 7-B before we move on? Okay, we can move on to 7-C, which is our Renters Commission work plan. So each year we create a work plan, and it's a list of topics, things that we want to discuss, work on. We decided to assign them priorities and sort of organize them based on these three categories that we just came up with. So I can just go through and kind of cross out some of the things that we have been able to talk about. So the research waitlist fees and proposed amendments. Does anyone feel that still needs to be discussed? Because I kind of feel that we've already tackled that. Okay. I think auditing Chapter 105 is sort of an ongoing process. So that I'm not going to cross that out. And so I'm just going to go through our last year's work plan see what's left over, and then we can kind of brainstorm ideas for a new work plan. I should have been clear about that. What should we keep? What should we leave behind? But certainly the things we've already tackled, we don't need to talk about again. Establish and support enforcement process for Chapter 105. This is kind of in the process. It's in the works, so I'm just going to tentatively cross that out since, well, I'll leave it on, I guess, since it's not fully done. We have not really talked about proposing an ordinance requiring owner-occupied rentals to obtain a COC, a certificate of compliance. So we could still talk about that. Update to rights and duties of tenants booklets. There's been some updates made, but that's just been this. There's the three sections. There's the city section, the tenants advocate section, and the landlord section. The city's side has been updated in some ways. The tenants advocates one has not. So that's definitely still on there. And please raise your hand if you have any questions or comments as I go through these. Jeff.
I wonder if we want to add something to about the owner occupied to shared use spaces. I was recently talking to somebody who the location they live, one of the floors of the unit has been turned into an Airbnb by the landlord, and there are a lot of associated issues and concerns with that. So it's not technically owner occupied, but it is kind of a mixed use space that I think takes away from the experience and the rights of actual full-time tenants.
Okay, so that specifically is short-term rentals like Airbnbs. Could you rephrase, say that again in fewer words, please?
Yeah. How would I want to put that in fewer words? And maybe this isn't the place to put it. Let me think about that for a minute.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, just let us know if you think of a good way to formulate that, and I'll just stick it somewhere on here and we'll include it. And okay, keep going. Enforcement process for Chapter 105. I think we kind of know how it stands and how it might change. We've talked to rental housing services. And sounds like they're making some changes to expand enforcement, which is, I think, encouraging. So anyone against me crossing this off here? Okay. Implementation of affordable housing. I think that's not something we've discussed a whole lot. So I'll leave that on there. Fair Housing Act violations in Ann Arbor. So we talked to the Human Rights Commission, and that was part of the discussion. Should we keep this on here, or do we feel this discussion is ongoing?
From an education perspective, it might be nice to talk to someone from the Fair Housing Center, the local Fair Housing Center.
We'll keep that on there. That seems like an important stakeholder to talk to. Right to counsel. We have not talked about that. However, draw in here, but yeah, there we go. It seems like these two ideas we're starting to address, the right to counsel and eviction, since they are really closely related. So that's in the works. Ordinances aimed at slowing gentrification and displacement in other communities. We have not discussed. Seems like a big topic. I'll keep that on there. Stakeholder engagement meetings. We've had, we've tabled. I think that's the biggest thing. So I'll keep that on there. Create or improve educational materials for ELO. Well, we didn't do this. The staff did this. Thank you, Kristen. So we can cross that out. I feel that that was a really great flyer. There was a flyer made for ELO. There's a flyer made for Right to Renew. I think they were both really well made and very easy to read. So improve tenant accessibility for locating information on open housing code violations. Well, we got the tenants' rights booklet on our website. Does anyone remember other things that we've done on that?
Is this about looking up code violations like on stream or prior e-track it? Is that what we're talking about?
I'm not sure. I think it's more, is that?
I mean, it talks about locating the housing code violations. I mean, if that's the issue, then maybe we can have, and maybe we already do, I don't know, but maybe we can have a spot on our Renters Commission website that just directs people to those resources. That would be easy enough. I think, has everything moved to stream, Kristen?
I believe there is still some holdover. I'm sorry, my printer just started making that sound. I think there's some holdover, but I think that everything new is in stream. So as it'll be phased out soon, is my understanding.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I think that is what that was aimed at. Thanks for clarifying.
Can I have a question? That
Absolutely. Go ahead, Daniel.
yeah, is the more applicants is a part of this end of the year's plan or for the next years? Are we going to finish all the more applicants before the end of the year, or we're going to we'll keep doing this for more applicants for next year because we don't have this part in our plan so far for the next year. So just a small question. I'm sorry.
You're wondering about applicants to the commission? Is that right?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think I'm a little confused. I'm sorry. We will hopefully be filling the applicant, the vacant seats, and probably.
Is this going to be part of the work plan or just a side thing? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that then. I don't think we would put it in the work plan. This is something I think the commission will constantly be doing, filling vacancies that arise.
I see. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Nan.
You're welcome, Zach.
Okay. I'm just going to start highlighting the things that we're actively working on, that I know there's movement on these issues. I have a question, Kristen. If your rebellious printer will allow you to talk. There was something about how the booklet for the tenants advocates section of the booklet to be updated. You had to track down the original writers or the last writers of the section. And I know you guys were working on it. Is there any update on that?
Have an update on that. I don't think a lot of resources are being spent to do that right now. My understanding is that the original writers would be very kind of old at this point. And so it's been a little bit tricky to locate them. So that's one way to edit it. The other way is to change the rules of the city charter, and what's in the city charter outlines the rules for updating the booklet. At this point, that seems like it might be an easier process than tracking down the writers, even though it would be a pretty big process. I think it would have to be it would be like to the vote of the people. So it would be an item on your ballot, probably too late for February, but it would be maybe November, which is also a presidential election. So I don't know. I think something to consider, maybe worth discussing in a work group, maybe with Councilmember Rodino.
Okay, thanks, Kristen.
I think I do know who originally wrote it.
Will you email me? I wasn't doing the research, so I wasn't working closely with it, but my understanding was it was hard to find the group or something like that. So send me an email, please.
Okay. And I think he was at Student Legal Services when he wrote it.
Yeah, I hope it's the right person, and that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
I think
Email me that name too. I'm curious.
I'm glad I brought that up. Okay. Thanks, Julia. Jeff.
I just want to make sure I understood this. Is my understanding that we can't make major changes to the book without first consulting the people that wrote it?
Yes.
Without a ballot initiative?
Yes, that your understanding is correct.
Okay.
Something like this would be really well suited to be an ordinance rather than the city charter. It can be in the charter to say that this should exist, and the rules are in the ordinance. It's still a process to change an ordinance, but it's much easier than the charter. So I think if there was a charter amendment, it would be kind of to pull the specific regulations out of the charter, like page size, page color, font size. All of those things are in the charter, and that's should be an ordinance instead.
I thought I was hearing wrong. Thank you.
The city section of the booklet can be changed without going through this process. I mean, they have changed it.
Yes. Yeah, there is some it can be changed, but the content that can be in there from the city is a little bit limited.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Okay. Well, I guess I'll say that we're working on that, sort of. Because Julie's going to email. All right. So let's just take a minute and pat ourselves on the back, because we had a lot of things on here and we've actually been able to cross a few of them off. And I think that's really cool. We got 4 concrete items on the work plan that we've basically finished. I'm very happy about that. And we've started on multiple other items. So let's just take a moment and a round of applause to everybody. Thank you for your work. Okay. Now, first, I'll start off by asking, is there anything on this work plan that you don't think should be in next year's work plan? Anything that you think it is just not a priority, or is tangentially been addressed and we don't really care about it anymore?
I think most everyone in the city feels that affordable housing is an issue. But I think we probably need to break that down, because there's limits to what we can actually do as a commission to get more housing built.
Yeah, I do think so. It's a complicated issue for a lot of people. Yeah, that's a very good idea.
Do you have any ideas on how to break that up, Julia?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
I think we put that as that's an education piece. So I mean, maybe part of what we need is an education and then a group that can sit down and talk about how to break that into smaller pieces, because that's a big ticket item there. But I'm sure there's pieces of it that we can address and tackle, or at least try to.
Good point, Jill. Okay.
I do feel I need this to learn a little bit first. Thank you.
Okay. Any other points on here that you don't think should be on the list? Okay. Well, let's see. Actually, I should go down here and say that we've already kind of addressed that one. Okay. What is not on the list that should be here?
I think it would be good to include advocating for staffing for enforcement. I think it's like measurable. I think it'd be good like as a kind of documented as something you'd like to do next year, if that is something you'd like to do.
I can't see everybody's hand, so if I'm talking over somebody raising their hand, I'm sorry. I can only see a couple of you. But I wonder if, to me, this is something that I'd like to think about a little bit more. And because we're missing commissioners or council members and other commissioners, it might make sense to kind of send this out as we've edited so far with asking people to kind of come to the next meeting with some, thoughts about this. Not to take it off the table now. I'm just saying the benefit of just having a little time to think about it, I think would at least help me.
Definitely. And it's my understanding that we will finalize it at next month's meeting. Is that right, Kristen? Because we finalize the work plans in December, I think.
Yes, we could finalize it. It can always be on the agenda next month, and then you could postpone it to January if you needed to.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. Okay, is there anything else that I should add to this list? We will talk about it again. If anyone has an idea right away.
I think we kind of took it off, but the whole junk fees things, and I know last time we heard from the commissioners they're still working on it. But I don't know if that means it should come off our list.
Sure. I think that's fair. I think that we that item on there, which was researching and proposing changes, we did that, but I do think that junk fees generally should definitely still be on our radar. So I've added it down here. Jeff?
I was just gonna basically say the same thing, it's not necessarily violations, I think, of the right to renew, but kind of the violations of the spirit of that ordinance that are being utilized to circumvent it in ways that were not anticipated. I still think that's something we need to make sure we're keeping an eye on.
Yeah. I would agree. I think this section right here, we could add, let's see. I'll add up here also right to the middle as well. 551, because I think that's kind of in line with what you're saying here. The kind of monitoring that section. What is enforcement like? I'm figuring out a color coding system on the fly here, so bear with me. So red is things we finished. Yellow is ongoing projects. Blue are additions. Great. Anything else?
This is kind of to take one off, maybe. I'm willing to contact the Fair Housing Center and see if somebody can talk at the January meeting. Does that make sense? And ask them to talk like 10, 15 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Let's leave it on the list so that we can cross another thing off next year. How about that? Make us feel better about ourselves. Okay. I'm gonna put on here social housing. So like nonprofit housing. That kind of falls in line with the implementation of, I think I would say it is underneath there, implementation of affordable housing. So maybe I should put it up there instead, since it's.
Zachariah, would like permanent supportive housing fall into that category?
That's a good question. I would imagine so, but can you tell me, like, I would need to know, I think, the details of what the permanent supportive housing is like.
Yeah, so permanent supportive housing is more, it's kind of like a combination of low income housing plus supportive services. So I believe Avalon does it. I couldn't say off the top of my head like which properties or locations, but it's kind of to help folks that need like maybe a little more structured just assistance to help them maintain housing.
Yeah, that would definitely be social housing.
Okay, cool.
Right. So in some of the Ann Arbor Housing Commission's units, Avalon does supportive services.
Okay. Anything else before we move on? We will discuss this in our next agenda, if you all think that's a good idea. Okay. Well, great. Thank you, everyone, for your ideas. Really excited to keep working on all these different cool projects. Okay, so we'll put that on our next meeting's agenda, unless anyone has a problem with that. And we'll move on to 7-D, which is reviewing our bylaws. Does anyone have any problems with the bylaws? Any suggested edits? I'd imagine not, but if anyone has a problem with how the commission is set up and how we run our meetings and all that, we can definitely have a discussion about it. Really quickly here. So it is 8 pages. I would encourage you to just, at the very least, take a look at it. But I think unless anybody has anything to say about the bylaws, we let's see, would we rather wait another month and see if anyone thinks of something, or do we all just want to say that the bylaws are okay? And let me rephrase that. Do we want to discuss this further at another meeting, or do we want to just move on?
Honestly, I didn't read all the way through it again. I did when I started. So let's take a vote on it. I'd be happy to take a vote on it next month.
Okay, thank you. And Kristen, do we actually need to take a vote on it, or do we just not do anything?
Just says that they should be reviewed annually. If you did want to make any changes, it's a 2-meeting process, so
Okay.
think about that, I guess. But if you're fine with this as your review, then that's fine.
Sounds good. How about this? We can always add it to an agenda in the future. Let's not put it on the agenda for next month, but if anyone wants to see something, just email Kristen and we can put it on the agenda. Jeff?
I was going to say, unless somebody has any suggestions, it wouldn't hurt to move on. It looks like our last approval was in September, so I guess we're kind of overdue. But if people want more time to look at it, I think it's been working pretty well the way we've been going. So,
yeah. Okay, sounds good. We don't really need to take a vote on it. It sounds like since there's nobody's proposing any changes, we can just say that they look good. We've reviewed them and they look good. Unless someone disagrees at some point between this meeting and next, and you'll send us an email. Great. We can move on to 7-E, a discussion of short-term rentals. Yeah, I'm just making sure we have enough time for this. We can make this a fairly short discussion. I think it'll come back, but the reason why I put this on here is, we received an email, first of all, recently that's attached in communications about short-term rentals. So that's Airbnb, VRBO. It's exactly what it sounds like, short-term rentals. You're renting a space out for a shorter period of time than a regular lease. And so there's been concern about short-term rentals in the city for the past few years, and the city council passed an ordinance on this, regulating short-term rentals to, I think, overall to try to reduce the overall number of them, because in their eyes and the eyes of quite a few residents, every rental unit that is being transformed into a short-term rental is one fewer rental units, one less rental unit that's available to a prospective tenant. And that's a problem given our supply issue in the city. So Jeff, go ahead. We'll open it up.
Just real quick, when we say short-term rentals, what is the cutoff? Because are we talking, folks that are renting month to month? Is that considered short-term, or are we talking like weekends here? And does the city kind of specify between those kind of levels?
Yes, they do. It's a short-term rental is a dwelling or unit that is rented for less than 30 consecutive days to persons other than the permanent resident or the owner. There is a website that I think we should all review on the city government's website, short-term rentals. It gets a little confusing. And so I think I'm interested in throwing together a presentation or some kind of informal report to all of you, kind of giving you all a rundown of the rules. If anyone's interested in helping me make that, let me know. But the reason why I put it on here is because although there was an ordinance passed to regulate short-term rentals, it seems like there are many illegal, unauthorized short-term rentals in the city. In fact, there is a company that produces software to try to detect these, and they, at least according to them, there's around 700 unauthorized short-term rentals in the city of Ann Arbor. I have no way of knowing if that's a correct number, so take that with a grain of salt. But it does seem like it's a widespread problem since I've heard about it through tenants. Julia.
I think it is a big deal because it does take units off the market, but that it also is, for many people, kind of lousy to live next door to that, whether you're a homeowner or a tenant. And it's pretty lousy. It's one thing if you're a homeowner and you rent out for football weekend, like, sure, why not? But to have units sitting empty for months on end and just, a couple of hot times a year renting really makes for lousy neighbors. And I think it's also important to catch the people who are breaking the law and making them register or pay some fines, that there are things like this to try to generate some more money for the inspectors.
Jamie, then Jeff.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think this kind of ties well back into what Jeff was saying about tenants who are basically roommates with Airbnb customers. I am familiar of one other person who rents a room, and the other room in the building is used for Airbnb. So obviously they entered into that agreement willingly, but it's pretty unfortunate that anybody would have to put themselves in a living situation like that and still pay an insane amount of money. So yeah, I'm just curious how that is even allowed. But just throwing that out there.
Jeff, go ahead.
And Julie and Jamie both said it. The person I talked to, this is a new development for her, but it's the neighbors basically in the same building, like upstairs, downstairs kind of thing. And her comments are, it's loud. There's usually a lot more people than probably should be in there. And to touch on what Jamie said, the idea of like having to allow someone access to a shared space when you only are technically is terrifying. From a safety point of view, that is absolutely terrifying. Like, oh yeah, I just have a room and anybody I don't know can come in here and use the kitchen or whatever anytime. That just sounds like a horrible situation waiting to happen.
Brandon?
Yeah, my question is that speaking of being loud and noisy, and if there's any, because so far I've seen there's no any like regulations for those people who are supposed to, they have to follow, like so they cannot do something at certain times or make it to be too noisy. If there's anything that we could do to have those kind of regulations, so make it a little better for people who is trying to living around them. I did hear people talking about Airbnb, and it causes a lot of troubles because of the excitement of this weekend or something like that.
Thank you, Brandon. Bob?
So one thing that I think that is a specific requirement, and I don't know if this has already been done, but one of the things you see if you look at Airbnb listings is that, for example, 2-bedroom houses will say that they sleep 12 or 14. And the occupancy requirements for short-term rentals seems to be arbitrary. And if that was held to the same standard as long-term rentals, I think some of these problems might be alleviated a little bit, but you'd have to have some sort of enforcement mechanism.
Thanks, Bob. Rosanita?
I was thinking about the shared space when you have a long-term renter and then the short-term renters coming and going. And if, I'm the person who has the long-term lease, I went through I went through an inspection and all of that, and the security deposit. What happens if one of the short-term renters ruins something? Um, how does that process work? Is there a process for something like that that protects the long-term renter in those cases? I see Robert shaking his head. Um, and
Probably
then
not.
and then my other question is for most long-term rentals, especially newer builds, right? They have to abide by, the ADA regulations for it. And I know that we've had some, I guess, recent council approvals on having short-term rental units in new apartment buildings. And do those short-term rental units have to be accessible? Or do any of those have to have, is there a minimum of accessible units in those? Do we know that? Like, I think there's one that they were wanting to build downtown, and um, but I don't recall anything about that. I know just for a normal building, but not for if that regular apartment complex now has set asides for short-term rentals.
Thanks, Rosanita. Jeff, you can go first.
It's just a quick thought I had tied into our inspection issue. If there are really 700 illegal short-term facilities being operated, I feel like an inspector that focuses on that would easily pay for itself and the extra inspectors that they're looking to hire.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I again take it with a grain of salt. The company's name was Granicus, which I does other city they pay them to do other city services here at the city of Ann Arbor. But not this. And to my knowledge, there isn't. The enforcement strategy currently for this is, I guess it relies on complaints, I think. So I'm not really sure how those complaints are filed and who goes through them. And I imagine that the complaint process involves some fact gathering. And I'm not sure if there's anybody who is paid to do that. So I don't know if any of that's happening. So, get some evidence that there was a short-term rental actually operating there, and that's not allowed. Because the short-term rentals are only supposed to be operating in certain zones, and they all need to have licenses. So, yeah, I think that there was some cities recently that have also been trying to crack down on this, and they have some inspection approaches to enforcement. And I think we should probably read about that. Bob?
Two quick comments. First, I think that Ann Arbor had a grandfathering in of existing short-term rentals. So something that may seem to be illegal may or may not be. And I think that would be essentially a legal, essentially a court proceeding or something, perhaps to determine that, because I don't know how you would inspect something and determine whether it was grandfathered in or not. The next comment is there, I think, are 3 hotels that are being built in Ann Arbor, or planned to be built at the current time. So this may be a problem actually that kind of solves itself. There's been a real lack of hotel facilities in downtown Ann Arbor, and as there more and more units become available in hotels, the economic benefits of a short-term rental may become less attractive.
Thanks for all the discussion so far. I think that we should, since it's getting a little bit late, we should move on. But hopefully we should. Is anyone against returning to the subject at our next meeting? Okay. I'll try to look through the rules and give everyone a rundown of what I've learned. Dandan, did you want to say something? No. Okay, no worries. And Bob, I think that my impression is that the demand is so high for this sort of short-term, hotel, Airbnb style thing. That even with the new hotels, I think that there's probably going to be a pretty big market for it. I could be wrong. Okay. Well, we will move on then to plan for December meeting. So we can have a discussion of short-term rentals. We can have a discussion of the work plan. Excuse me. What else should we put on our next agenda? Hey, John.
Hello. Sorry I'm late. I had another meeting. You might want to ask for an update from staff on where we are on right to renew and ELO complaints. We've just revised our form. We're going live with that. We've been reaching out to the landlords on those, act now, lock in low, quote unquote, rates, even though they're higher. You also might want to get someone from staff to talk about short-term rentals, because I was in court today on one. So I know that staff field these complaints. They look into them. They write tickets. I'm not saying there's many, but it's something that Brandy does. I think Chris McFarland does. So you might want to maybe have Kristen reach out to staff with some questions about short-term rentals, so that you guys have a little more data. How many complaints have there been? How do we look for them? How do we investigate the complaints? I don't know how you ask, what impact do short-term rentals have on available space for tenants? So you might want to do some work around that and in advance of the meeting, so you have more data. Same with the ELO and right to renew. Where are we? What complaints are we charging, or are we not charging them? All that.
Thank you, John. Julia?
Yeah, we should definitely put what John just said on the agenda for next month. But we did at the last meeting talk about education for us as commissioners. And we sent around the eviction video, which I hope anybody who was interested had a chance to watch. And we also talked a little bit about more information on security deposits. So I don't know. I'm going to put you on the spot, Gail. Do you think you could do like 10 minutes on security deposits at our next meeting?
Sure.
Thank you.
Great idea. Thanks, Julia. Thanks, Gail. Okay, so what I have so far is the work plan, an update on right to renew / ELO. I will show a draft complaint form for those in a moment here. A discussion of short-term rentals. We I think we may end up requesting more information from mental housing services about that, but I'm not sure what questions we would ask. So I think we'll have to discuss it first at our next meeting. Again, an update on the fees, the fee banning recommendation. Although, yeah, let's just put that in there. That could go in council member reports, but let's just put it in there. And from Gail, a security deposit sort of educational rundown. Great. So those are 5 items right there. I've written them down. Anything else? Okay. Well, if you have an idea, feel free to email me, Julia, and Kristen, and we can put it on the agenda. Or if you just want to float an idea, feel free to send an email. I'd love to talk about anything. Okay, thank you. So we can move on then to item 8, which is reports. So 8-A, report from City Council. Our council members are not here. I think Councilmember Harrison is at a meeting for TC1 zoning where they're discussing transit corridor zoning. And unfortunately, Councilmember Redina is sick at the moment. So no update from them, although there was a discussion about the junk fee banning. That's an ongoing discussion. So if anyone wants to get involved, just let us know. 8-B, report from HHSAB.
Hi. Yes. The HHSAB meeting was last week. The majority of the meeting was spent on 2 things. One was the winter shelter plan. And the other one was a long presentation about what they call the continuum of care data review, which is programs and need for homeless, basically, and what are we doing to what are facilities, what options do we have available to get people into housing, short-term rehousing, and it was broken down by all sorts of different groups, racial disparities, veterans, non-veterans, families, and single folks. And I'd be happy to forward on the whole presentation. It's pretty long, but it looks like, basically, compared to last year, especially as a lot of the federal funding for programs and eviction moratoriums and things has lapsed, the need is increasing quite a bit compared to the last year to 2 years time. They were having a lot of success with a lot of the money that was coming in, and now that it's no longer available, they're seeing increases in need. And one of the numbers that jumped out to me, I have to find the exact number, was a 70% increase on people experiencing homelessness over this since September of last year. It was I just found it was 636 people for this year. So the beginning of the year through September of this year. And the number of people that they were able to find permanent housing for has dropped since June of 2022 by about 15%. So and on the one hand, 70%, it's a big number. 636 was the actual number. So it's getting, the problem is getting worse as time is going on in terms of that. And I said the other thing they were talking about was the shelter situation this winter. They said a lot from the polar vortex years back in 13 and 14. And they are going to continue their plan to have several church groups come in to donate or provide time for like warming centers and things like that during the days. It becomes a little more problematic at night. I know there are some churches like here in Ann Arbor that especially in the coldest months of the year, January, February, do have daytime warming stations and places where people can come. But of course, those are from, like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. kinds of situations. So that was discussed a lot. They're looking at hopefully getting some more money from the county to improve on that. At the last county commission meeting, there was some discussion on that budget, and they actually got more than they had anticipated. And so hopefully that will make a difference.
Thank you, Jeff. That was a really great report, I think. Very detailed.
And I have the copies of the PowerPoints. The data one was something like 40, 50 slides. There's a lot of charts and stuff. So if anybody's interested, I'd be happy to send it.
Please do. I would love to see that, actually.
Please, I need it too, please.
So maybe you could send it to Kristen. She could include it in the email to everybody.
I will.
So does anyone have any questions for Jeff? I do. The 636, is that the number?
Yeah. Let's see. It was 636 people were experiencing homelessness at the end of September 2023, which is up 70% since September of last year.
Is that countywide?
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
The other issue. Oh, I'm sorry. One other thing I wanted to mention. The other kind of big concern is the amount of time it takes for people to, apply for some of the services and to move them to other, from temporary solutions to more permanent ones. Currently, the average number of days from intake into a program or some sort of temporary accommodation into permanent housing is 165 days.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions for Jeff? Okay. Well, we can move on to a report from our staff liaison. There was a report. Let's see. Take away Kristen. I'll share my screen here. That's right. Oh, you were muted, Kristen.
Sorry. Not very many updates this month. The two bigger updates are that we had that really large tenant booklet request, and we are working to get that printed for McKinley. So that's in the works. And then worked with John Reiser and Janet Farrell in rental housing to update the ELO right to renew complaint form and guide. So the final version of this would be 2 pages, front and back. The back would have the guide, and then the front would have that would get fixed. The front would be the complaint form, and the back would be the guide. And right now, the form only addresses ELO, so I think it will be great for the form to address and explain right to renew. I think the goal is to try to get this online by tomorrow. Seems like we're getting complaints about it. So, or not about it, but about ELO and right to renew, and need a good way for people to submit them.
Kristen, Bob.
Is this an online form that you can submit online, or is it something you have to print off and do a paper form?
You would be able to, I believe it'll be fillable once it's live, and then you could email it.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just one quick question, where it says under the boxes that say ELO timelines, it's a tiny bit confusing to me that it says 180 days before the lease, the end of the lease in the middle section. but then the deadline for the current tenant to accept a successive lease can't be sooner than 150 days. Do we want to add something there that says that the landlord has that 180 days is the deadline for the landlord to send, I forget, the notice of what the terms of a successive lease are going to be? That's just a little confusing to me. If it's not confusing to anybody else,
I see, because we want tenants to be able to renew early if they want to renew early. Right? Gail, right there.
yes. But why does it say 180 days at the top?
That because that's when they have to give the.
That's when they have to give, the landlord has to give the notice, but it doesn't say that there. And I'm wondering if maybe that can be added. So it explains why it says 180 days at the top.
Yeah, I think that the text underneath it doesn't explain that the terms of that successive lease that are being referenced here need to be given by this time point.
Right. So
is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So where you say 240 days, I mean, you could say landlords can start providing current tenants terms and conditions for a successive lease at 240, and then the next.
But that's not true. They can start on day one, and they do. They start too damn early, but they're allowed to. If they start that early, they have to send a second one.
Maybe that second one is what needs to go in the middle column. Because when I read that, John, I read that to say that
it's late at night, and I'm trying to think how we can better word it. I appreciate, well, the deadline for the current tenant to accept a lease can't be sooner. Well, it can be sooner because they can accept it much sooner. We know that from recent practices. Yeah.
Right. All I'm trying to, and maybe you and I can talk about it another time, but all I'm trying to say is that I feel like those need to be aligned. If it says 180 days up in the heading, it's got to explain what the relevancy of 180 days is.
That's the deadline by which the landlord has to have notified the tenant.
Oh, I know that, but that's not what it says.
So I'm kind of talking out loud here, Kristen, with you too. If you're still there, I don't see your face, but I'm sure you are. But there you are. Yes.
Trying to map out the timeline is always a challenge, so I appreciate
it. It is hard for sure.
This is from the end of the lease. I'm with you, folks.
Yeah. And then the count back is tricky.
Yeah, I think it logically makes sense, but when you try to explain it to somebody, it makes it very difficult.
It's really hard, yeah.
So it might be can't be later. Well, no, it can't. The deadline for current tenants to accept a successive lease can't. Well, that's a true statement. The deadline.
It is a true statement. It just doesn't connect to the topic headline there. So, I mean,
yeah.
Maybe we could talk.
Yeah, maybe we could have a conversation about this later.
Yeah, that's fine. But you just mentioned that you were trying to get it out tomorrow or make it go live tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is it possible to delay that until we get some changes made?
Or I can talk tomorrow morning, but
we're gonna. Yeah, I'm on the way to Lansing for state bar stuff, but we can talk maybe on the phone. I won't be able to look. I'll be able to talk, and then you can work that out. We can, but I want to get this out there, so that the tenants can be aware of what it is. They can make the complaints. The complaint form. If you go up to the complaint form, you'll see that it asks for better details that we can evaluate whether something's there. When does the lease start? When does it stop? When were these communications done? Attach the communications.
Okay. Call me whenever you want, and I'll try to answer the phone.
All right, and I might loop in Kristen.
Okay.
Who's got the keys to the kingdom on the editing.
I'd be happy to help in any way as well. So you can always add me in. Okay, Kristen, sorry. Was there anything else that you wanted to share?
No, from last month, email subscriptions are up about 30, which I was surprised by when I checked. So you're approaching 600 email subscribers. And these people receive an email when your agenda comes out, or if you have a special event, or if you have something else you wanted to email them about, such as the new form coming online. So after that is live, that can be something. Maybe also for the vacancy, if you're interested, I can send out notifying that there's 2 vacancies. That's all I have.
Thank you, Kristen. Any questions for Kristen? Thank you very much for your work on all this. I hope we can get some added clarity to the complaint forms, but I'm very happy that that work has been done to create the forms. Okay. 8-D report from commissioners. Do any commissioners have a brief report to share to give? Jeff?
Not a report so much, just a thought. As we've talked about in the past, but I don't know that it's ever happened. Just it might be nice to maybe either think about having a meeting in person or some other social event where we can get together and actually see each other face to face and chat, and just a thought. Especially I know that it's busy in the season, but it's also the season that times of things tend to happen. So just wanted to toss that out into the universe.
I think you do have 4 in-person meetings permitted for the rest of the year. And so that will start again in January. It'll reset in January, 4 per year.
4. Okay. I would love to personally. Maybe yeah, we could send out either a social event or an in-person commission meeting, I think would be really nice. Yeah. Do you have a preference on which one, Jeff? Or both?
No, not really a preference one way or the other. Just I can't help but notice that, just I've only ever met in person like 2 or 3 of you.
Yeah. Kristen, where would those in-person meetings be if we wanted to have one?
Kind of depending on what you wanted to do, you could have the meeting anywhere. Lots of space at City Hall, as I've talked about a library meeting in the past. I will share that with the presidential primary election in February. My schedule is super limited for anything outside of my typical renters commission commitment, but other months would be fine. Also, if anybody is free that day, we're always recruiting poll workers who are paid close to $20 an hour for the whole day. So I can send out that info if anyone in the group is interested. Want to work at your neighborhood polling location from 6 to 8, 2 paid breaks.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I suppose we can email about it, but maybe we could take a poll about whether we would want to do our next meeting in person. That might not be the right one to do, but let's I guess, okay, let's just do that quickly here. Is anybody who here is interested in doing our next meeting in person, if that's a possibility? If we're able to find the space for it.
Do you have the exact date? The 3rd or 2nd Thursday or Wednesday?
3rd Thursday.
3rd.
21st of December, it looks like.
Ooh.
I would suggest December might not be the best month for that.
Yeah, you're right. That's not the best one. Let's put that on the back burner. How about that? Okay, great. Thank you, Jeff. Let's move on. So we have we have our second general public comment.
All right, public comment can be made by phone at 877-853-5247 or 888-788-0099 and entering meeting ID 935-8080-1941. If you are calling in by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And if you are joining with the web link, you can go to a2gov.org/renters commission meeting, and you can press the raise hand function if you'd like to address the renters commission for up to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the renters commission? Go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, no attendees have indicated. But if we can close it.
Thank you. Move on to communication. We have a few emails here, 5 emails that we received. You can quickly jump through them and just raise your hand if there's something on here that you want to discuss. We got an email regarding short-term rentals. I think we should, we're going to continue that conversation. Received an email about landlords entering without giving prior notice or knocking. Which doesn't, if that's correct information, it doesn't seem like it's allowed. This email here, I was a little confused about this one, honestly. It sounds like the unit had an occupancy of, oh, whoops, the email's down here. So was it that the unit had an occupancy of 6, but there were more people on the lease?
I suspect that's often happens, or it occasionally happens in student tenant rentals. Maybe that's from a parent concerned about it. I don't know. But it seems to also be about landlords mislabeling rooms as actual bedrooms.
Yeah, it's good to be aware of that. I think we just keep our eyes out for if we hear more about that situation, or these types of situations. Then here's the early renewal situation, which I think CMB management company sent this out to all their tenants about how if they didn't renew very early in the cycle, this is about 2 months in, or rather closer to 3 months, that their rent would go up by much. It would go up. It would be much, much higher. That's what it was. And then we received another email regarding Courthouse Square, which I still haven't heard back about that situation. Okay, any questions, comments on the communications we received? Okay, we can move on to our next item 11, which is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Benita. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Jeff. All those in favor of adjourning, say yay.
Yeah.
Yay.
Okay.
Yay. All those opposed say nay. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Not everyone.
Good night.